everybody. My name is Tatiana Koval, and this is podcast Happy at Work. In our podcast, the experts from the different countries we discuss a topic which I'm passionate about. It's about employee happiness and about different things which help us to become more happier and helps our employee to be more happier in the work. And my guest today is Kara Dennison. Hi, Kara.
Hi, Tatiana. Thank you for having me.
I'm happy to see you here, and I'm happy what we decided to discuss a very interesting topic about happy hiring because the happiness of employees who are working now for your company is starting from the hiring process. But before we start discuss this topic, please could you make a short introduction to my
Absolutely.
audience?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Like Tatiana said, my name is Kara Dennison. I spent my career in human resources and particularly in recruiting. And like Tatiana said, I strongly believe that happiness for employees starts at the very, very beginning when they first are introduced to the company. So since starting in human resources, I've reviewed over 500,000 resumes throughout my career. And after working in human resources and recruiting, one thing that I was really passionate about was recognizing that the hiring process as a whole, from both the company side and the candidate side, is a bit of a broken process. And so, what I was passionate about was helping friends and family work the hiring process in a strategic way so that they could get hired at companies that they felt aligned with, where they could be happy. And after a while, I quit my job in human resources and became a career coach, an executive career coach. And I've helped over 5,000 people now land their dream jobs at companies where they're happy.
Carol, I really like your experience from both sides for the companies and also for the people who are um, I would say now we're searching or searched in the past because we have so much successful stories. My first question is, what does happy hiring means for you?
Sure. What does happy hiring mean for me? For me, happy hiring means honestly transparency on both sides, both for the company and for the candidate, which shouldn't sound revolutionary, but in today's market, it is. Between ghost jobs and AI and candidates playing what I like to call the job search lottery by just applying over and over to hundreds of applications, it's become a convoluted process when it comes to hiring. And it causes a lot of frustrations for not just the company, but also for the candidates. And it hasn't been a happy process for either side for a very long time. And now we've added in things like AI and tools and longer processes and changing job markets. And it's created a more frustrating process. And so what a happy hiring process looks like for me is one where it's transparent and one where it isn't a transaction, it's a partnership. It's a partnership between the company and the people.
Mhm. If you talk about this partnership, and I absolutely agree what transparency is really important. But from the first, I want to discuss from the company side. When the company built this partnership, the candidate, because now the focus on the candidate experience also really important and impact our employer brand and our company reputation as employer and also as a corporate reputation. What should we do during this process for really improving results from one side, but also for improving our impact, for changing our impact in a positive way on the life of our candidates, both candidates who will have success because, but usually it's one candidates from a big pool, but also for other candidates who maybe now didn't join our company, maybe didn't join our company, but they were in this process. What
Ah,
should they do? How could you design this partnership from a company side?
that's a great question. Happy hiring isn't just a feel good initiative, right? It's a business strategy. And the companies that start treating hiring like a strategic business strategy are the ones that are going to not just reap the rewards, but also be the ones that are going to come out on top here. Um, when it comes to having a happy hiring process, the results are there when it comes to strong employer brand, right? So I love that you mentioned employer branding because that is your hiring process is your employer brand. And it's not just for the one person who gets hired, it's for every single person who enters your hiring process, right? So and a lot of times people forget that every single interaction is part of your employer brand. And that includes your job description. It includes your rejection letters. It includes your company page. It includes how the recruiter interacts with the employees or the candidates. But it also includes how your hiring managers are interviewing. Are they trained to interview appropriately? Right. All of these things are part of your employer branding. And so, one of the things that's really important when it comes to um, the metrics, the results of having a strong employer brand, not just the lower cost per hire, but you have a higher quality of hire, right? When you actually do finally make that offer, because you have a stronger employer brand. So the candidate understands the process along the way. So there's transparency along the way. But the opposite is true. If you have a bad employer brand, 72% of candidates with a bad experience, they're going to share that. And we've seen that. I don't know if you've seen that, but on LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, if you have a bad experience, you can't sweep that under the rug nowadays, right? It's going on Glassdoor, it's going on TikTok, it's going on
Mhm.
LinkedIn, and it's getting shared. And so not only is that one candidate maybe never applying to your company again, but neither is their network and neither is it potentially going viral, right? So it's one of those things where for a happy hiring experience, it's not just a nice to have. It really comes down to the metrics. Is this going to ruin your company's reputation? Is this a strategic initiative? And could you potentially be lowering your cost and getting a better fit into that role if you are tightening up your employer branding along every step of the way?
Mhm. I'm totally agree, Kara. My next question is about also from a company side. It's very important for us and focus on employee experience, also to be transparent and give understanding to our candidates why they are fit, our organizational doesn't fit for every particular person. And the very important part of this, it's not about professional skills, but also a personal, it's the values, a company culture. Culture fit is one of the most important part. For me, it's very important, but it's a part of be happy if you find the company where culture fit is perfect. In other situation, that could be a lot of problems. You could work, but all the times you have a lot of attrition, so we have a lot of problems, and which could damage your health and so on. What culture fit is important for both sides. What could you recommend to the companies how they should assess how maybe they should talk about the culture fit and how we should give feedback for better understanding and for I think setting connection with this candidate because if you say no appropriate way, it also means what it's no for me, but maybe it's opportunity for some of my friends because now I
Yeah,
understand better what this company is looking for.
absolutely. So I think culture fit is such a unique and interesting term, and one that I like to lovingly challenge. And here's the reason why. Because when companies talk about culture fit, sometimes that's a feeling, right? Does this person feel like they fit in, right? But when we talk about feelings and feeling like they fit in, sometimes that introduces bias, right? Because what if, that person for a gut instinct or a feeling um, is different per person they meet, right? So, what I like to challenge when it comes to the organizations is instead of culture fit, how can they be a culture value add? How can they add to the culture, right? And in doing that, there's let's instead flip it from a feeling and instead let's put a little bit more metrics. Let's put a little bit more data into it so that it's a little bit less biased. And how we do that is we define what the values of the culture of the company is, right? So if your culture values collaboration, autonomy, whatever your values are for the company, let's define that first. And most companies have this, or most companies might need to refresh this. And that's okay, right? Because we want to define what makes your culture so strong and what are the values of the people that make those cultures really strong. And then when we go out to the market and we are looking for candidates, we want to seek the values inside those candidates and find values that add to that culture, right? So we're not trying to stick ourselves into a box and then exclude people. We're instead standing in our value pillars and adding people that enhance that, if that makes sense. So this is going to eliminate bias. It's going to enhance our culture and it's going to keep us innovative. So how do
Mhm.
companies do this? One, defining values. Two, training interviewers on how to interview for values instead of gut instinct, right? And then three, scorecards, right? So having scorecards to measure people on values so that everything is more data driven instead of feelings driven. And then when it comes to feedback, it's a lot easier to give feedback to candidates and saying, instead of saying, well, we didn't feel like you were a good fit, it was, you're not a good fit because our values are these 5 values. And we didn't feel that you fit these values because you mentioned X, Y, and Z. And then that way, it's an easy way to part ways because there's metrics there. And then you have a brand ambassador because you were very clear, hey, we liked you for a lot of different reasons, but you don't add to our value for these reasons. But please stay into our organization, our ecosystem, because if you have people that are like you in good quality that fit our values, send them our way, you know?
Mhm. Uh, Laura, I like what you say. It's, for me, it's a really interesting part now for looking for the candidates, also as the potential ambassadors. What do you think? Is it really important? Is it really achievable for the companies to organize their happy hiring process this way? What the people who tried maybe without positive results, but they want to stay with the company, look at the company, recommend this company, and also maybe become a client of the company. Because I know these cases, but for me, it's very interesting, not just one particular case, it's two particular cases, but this is as a system. Um, could you dream about it? How we could organize the hiring process the way which help us make a big positive impact on the business and stay connected with the candidates on the market and make them
Yeah.
ambassadors of us.
Yeah. I have so many of these stories when at the end of the day, we're people, right? And we're building relationships. And I think sometimes we forget that when we're stuck in this system, when we're a candidate and we've applied to 300 jobs, and we've only heard back from 2 people, you start to feel like you're just a lottery number. And when you're a recruiter, to be fair, I've been that recruiter. I've reviewed 500,000 resumes. All of a sudden, the names start blurring and the resumes start to look the same. And so it when you are part of the system, it starts to feel like you become less than a person. And that's the sad reality of oh, I get emotional about it because I care so much. I've seen job seekers come to us broken because they feel less than human in this process. But I've also spoken to recruiters who feel overwhelmed and stressed because they're staring at thousands of resumes. And I know that they care. They want to find the right person because, I mean, of course you do. There's people that are struggling to do all of the work and not keeping up, right? And so you have two sides of the party that really want to make a match, but the system is really a hard one to work. And so at the end of the day, what I want everyone to remember is everyone is human. Everyone is human. And where I see the future of the job search going is we have so many tools that are here to help us. We have AI coming. It's already here. AI is already here. We have applicant tracking systems. We have all of these things. And we're in this weird middle where we're trying to figure out how do we use the tools to help us without losing the human connection. And when it comes to the candidate side, candidates need to remember that a job search is a strategy. It's not a numbers game. You can't be throwing in applications and just trying to hit everything out there because it's a losing game. One, all the jobs being posted out there, when you're only applying, you're only hitting about 20 to 30% of the open jobs. 70% of the jobs that are being filled through networking. And so if you're not having conversations with people, if you're not advocating for yourself, if you're not being strategic, then you're missing out on the majority of the opportunities out there. And for recruiters, honestly, the easiest fix for job seekers right now is personalization. Now, that's hard for recruiters because you don't have a lot of time. But when we look at the system, there are ways where we can implement AI to do like some of the logistics while implementing some personalization. For instance, rejection with like 1 to 2 sentences of personalization feedback, right? Things like that. Doesn't take too much work, but it would change the game for candidates, right?
Absolutely, absolutely agree. And I like what you tell about feedback.
Yeah.
For me, it's like a present for really if you could give a feedback independently. What type of feedback is, of course, positive feedback is better, but really the feedback is a present for us for understanding the situation, for improving something. What could you recommend for both sides here, I think, for companies? What could they do, especially now in the era of AI, for improving their skills to give them the real feedback to the candidates, which could help them in their job seeking process, in their career, in better understanding the situation for the new solutions in their life? And also for other side, for the candidates, what could you recommend to the candidates? How they should work with feedback from the company?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give advice for HR leaders first, right? So for HR leaders, the biggest suggestion that I would give is I don't care how long it's been, audit your hiring process. And I know that HR does audits all the time on all of their processes, but HR has a huge role in the company and it's a strategic role. If you haven't audited and gone through and applied for your own role, do it. Go through it as a candidate. See where the gaps are. See how long it takes. Um, a lot of times it's been a minute, right? It's been a minute. Get rid of any ghost jobs. There's been a survey that went out last year that said almost 90% of HR leaders have posted a ghost job. That will damage your reputation more than anything in today's job market. So get rid of any ghost jobs. Send out an email and get rid of them. Set communication standards. Uh, Tell candidates what the timeline's going to be. Tell them immediately, like, and let them know and be transparent. And I hear this. This is probably the biggest frustration from job seekers is the lack of communication. Honestly, people don't care how long it's going to take to follow back as long as they know how long it's going to be, right? So be transparent. And then the biggest thing is train your interviewers. The amount of times that I hear back from clients going through job searches where they've gotten asked the most insane questions, legal questions from C-level hiring managers. Um, that's setting your company up for some massive issues, especially in today's very open online social media. Train your interviewers, be communicative, be transparent, and audit your process. Now, for candidates, what I would say for candidates with job seekers, this is what I train all of my clients on is the process of the job search. When you go online, it tells you to apply, 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 apply. The problem with it is that the old school, like if we go back into like before the internet, when you had like our parents and our grandparents to find a
Mhm.
job, you had to take your printed out resume, you had to go into the company and be like, here I am, right? And then we implemented all this technology to make it better. And unfortunately, it took away all the human aspect of it, right? And it didn't make it better. It made it a lot harder because now we're trying to compete against every other needle in the haystack. What I would do is I always recommend people stop thinking about the job search as a numbers game and start thinking about it as a strategy game. Have conversations with people. What that means is start with your resume. Your resume, if you are not able to see your true value, hire someone. It is the best investment. You go to a doctor when you're sick, you go to a therapist when you're having, issues. Go to someone that can help you see your best self so that you can get your results and your achievements onto your resume and not your duties, right? So that people can see your impact. That's the first thing. Get your branding on track. Then get strategic. Start networking and having conversations. And if you don't know how to tell your story and your impact, get someone to help you tell your story and your impact because you are your best advocate. And then find people who can also advocate for you in companies. Those are going to be the best thing. And when you get feedback, don't be afraid to ask for feedback, right? From recruiters, from networking folks, from people that you trust. Don't take advice from people that you wouldn't take criticism, or don't take criticism from people that you wouldn't take advice from,
Mhm.
but from people that you really trust, get advice from them and get feedback and then take it with a grain of salt and know that it's just ways for you to improve so that you can get the outside perspective on yourself so that you can go to the next step. Um, and the one thing that I will always say is investing in your career is always a good idea when it's smart and when it's giving you skills that you can implement for your career. And a job search is a skill, unfortunately, and people don't really teach you how to do that. Networking is a skill, telling your story is a skill. And so those are skills that unfortunately you do need to learn in this day and age because sometimes an application only gets you about a 1 to 2% chance of landing an interview. So that's a very hard road. The reality is job search is hard. So you have to choose your hard. I like to choose the strategic one.
Mhm. Uh, Kara, it's very interesting focus also what you mentioned, one of the focuses, it's about networking. I want to go a little bit deeply. For me, it's networking is really important part, but I think from different perspective, not only because it's one of the way for finding job, but it's the way to finding other people with whom you could communicate. But also networking is really important also for the companies, for recruiters in the companies. What strategy of networking could you recommend for becoming happier and for improving the chances for the best job? Maybe not right now, maybe not all the people who will watch us with now we're currently looking for the job, but they could start to improve their networking for a better future, I think. What recommendation could you give for the both sides, for recruiters and also for the candidates?
Great question. For anyone in anyone's career, I think networking is a great way to learn about different companies and different industries. Um, a lot of times when you're in a company and you're not talking to other people, you get very siloed, right? You're just stuck and you only learn the lingo of your industry or of your company and you don't see what else is out there. And that can get you stuck in a bubble, right? Sometimes you start I don't want to say Stockholm syndrome, but you start accepting things because that's the norm, right? Because that's what you're used to. When you start talking to other people at other companies, you start realizing maybe this industry is doing something innovative that I can bring to my company that could change the game for how we're doing something. Maybe this process is different. Maybe these benefits are something that works better for for my life and my business. Maybe this industry is something that is a better fit for me, right? And so when you start talking to people in different companies and different industries, you get to think a little bit more creatively, you get to be a little bit more innovative, and you get to see what else is out there. So I think that's good for you, no matter who you are, whether you're in a job search or in your career, just so that you can start thinking about what the next step is for you. When you're in a job search, networking is good because it's not just networking to find another role, but when maybe you're interviewing within a company, network within that company. You want to find out what the culture is like. What's the leadership like? Are they being truthful in the hiring process, right? I want to know what the real is like before I sign up. It's like dating. You want to know how does this guy treat the waitress? How does he treat his mom? I want to know what the company is really like, you know? So that's what networking really is going to give you. It's going to give you real life insight into companies, organizations, etc. When it comes to recruiters, networking is always a great idea because the best way to hire is to grab someone who is happily employed, bring them over and sign them immediately without having to go through a 6 to 8 week hiring process, right? And so if you're constantly recruiting and networking in different industries, now you're bringing that innovation into your company. You're bringing that creative into that company. And now you're sourcing and value adding to your culture without having to go through a lengthy and expensive recruiting cycle.
Kara, thanks a lot for a lot of insights from other great conversation. Time is coming so fast. And but I have one more
Yeah.
question for you. It's this question I usually use for all my guests based on our conversation because you shared a lot of very useful things for me, a lot of useful tips. So three main tips could you give for both sides, the companies and for candidates, for happy hiring process? Three main tips.
Three main tips. Uh, Three main tips for the company. For the company, my advice is simple. Go through your hiring process. Go through your hiring process as if this is a company that you really want to get hired at, because it might have been a minute. Go through it. The second one is transparency and communication. Transparency and communication. Even if you think it's not what they want to hear, tell them anyways. They just want to know. They just want to know. They just want to know. And three, your hiring is a strategic business priority. If your company does not see it as a strategic business priority, your company is wasting time and money, lots and lots and time and money, and it's probably affecting your employer brand. Your top talent is probably looking to leave. It trickles down. It really, really does. And if your senior leadership is not investing in hiring as a strategic business priority, give me a call. No, but seriously, it's probably a problem because it is that serious. For candidates, um, when it comes to a job search, one, have someone outside of yourself look at your resume. It's so hard to see the whole picture when you're inside the frame. So have someone outside of yourself look at your resume and make sure that it is showing your impact, your achievements. It is human nature. There's something like 80% of people have imposter syndrome. So it's really, really hard, especially for executives, the higher you go, to showcase all of your impact. So make sure that you are showcasing your impact and selling yourself correctly. Two, make sure that your job search is strategic. Stop playing the job board lottery. For every 100 applications, you're landing maybe 2 interviews with a recruiter. A lot of time wasted, a lot of time wasted, and you're busy. So make sure you have a strategic job search that focuses on networking. And three, make sure that you are prepared to advocate and tell your story in interviews. A lot of times people are focused on these two things. I got to get my resume, I got to land the interview, and then whoops, I land the interview, and then uh-oh, I don't know how to tell my story. So these are the most important 3 things. And if you don't know how to do these, guess what? We can help you with that too. So message me on LinkedIn.
Carl, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for all advice you give today for the companies and for the candidates. I think it's very interesting for both sides because we have a hiring process at both sides. Thanks.
Absolutely. Having me, it was so great to talk about this. And I could talk about it all day.
My name is Tatiana Koval. This is podcast Happy at Work. Stay connected.